The diplomatic vessel from the Zraki homeworld towered over the small human settlement, casting long shadows across the newly built structures. Kara stood tall, her scaled shoulders back and her emerald eyes fixed on the ship her three cubs gathered. Around her legs, their small clawed hands clutching at her ceremonial robes. Beside her stood Olivia and Commander Vrax, an unlikely pair that represented the fragile alliance forming between humans and Zraki. Olivia wore her best uniform adorned with symbols of Earth leadership, while Vrax had removed his battle armor in favor of diplomatic attire, a gesture unheard of among traditional Zraki warriors. The smallest cub, Ryan, with his dark skin and bright green eyes, peered up at Kara, sensing her tension. The female cub Hope, with her copper curls, trilled softly in the Zraki tongue, asking if they were in danger. Kara stroked her head gently. "No, little one," she answered. "These are our people coming to meet you." The third cub, Max, remained silent, his analytical eyes studying the ship. His mixed heritage most evident in his features, human curiosity combined with Zraki caution. He was already showing signs of exceptional intelligence, processing information from both species with ease. The ship's landing ramp extended with a pneumatic hiss, revealing three Zraki dignitaries, their elaborate head crests marking them as members of the High Council. These were not soldiers but politicians and scientists, beings who rarely left the comfort of the homeworld. Their presence here spoke volumes about how seriously they were taking this development. High Counselor Zevix led the procession, her ancient scaled form moving with deliberate slowness, her eyes missing nothing as she surveyed the settlement. Behind her walked Chief Scientist Toral and War Minister Krull, representing the two dominant factions within Zraki society. Kara felt the cubs press closer to her, sensing the importance of this moment. She had prepared them as best she could, explaining that today might determine not just their future, but the future relationship between humans and Zraki for generations to come. Zevix approached, her gaze immediately falling upon the cubs, her head crest flaring slightly in surprise. Despite having seen images, the reality of these hybrid children clearly affected her more strongly than anticipated. So Scientist Kara has become Mother Kara. Zevix spoke, her translator, converting her complex Zraki speech patterns into English. For the benefit of the humans, present a title no Zraki has held in 10,000 cycles. Kara bowed her head in respect, but maintained eye contact, a balance of traditional Zraki deference with the human confidence she had adopted during her time on Earth. "Yes, High Counselor, these cubs represent a new beginning for our people, if you will allow it." War Minister Krull moved forward, his massive frame dwarfing even Commander Vrax, his battle-scarred scales reflecting his many campaigns. "The cubs should have been terminated immediately," he growled. "They represent genetic contamination." Hope surprised everyone by stepping forward, separating from Kara's protective stance, looking directly at Krull without fear. "We are not contamination," she said, in perfect Zraki, her young voice carrying clearly, "We are adaptation." The War Minister's eyes widened, his head crest flattening in shock at hearing such perfect pronunciation from one so young and hybrid at that. His hand moved instinctively toward the ceremonial blade at his side, but he did not draw it. Chief Scientist Toral moved closer, kneeling to examine Hope, his eyes showing the keen interest of a researcher rather than the disgust of a purist. "Fascinating," he murmured. "The neural development is accelerated beyond either species' baseline, and the linguistic centers show remarkable integration." Max stepped forward, joining his sister. "We learn faster than human children or Zraki hatchlings," he stated, his voice carrying the slight dual tone that all the cubs possessed when speaking Zraki. "We remember things from both bloodlines." Zevix turned to Kara. "These cubs, they contain ancestral memories?" she asked the ancient scientist in her voice, betraying her awe. Kara nodded. "The genetic splicing we performed was meant only to test compatibility," she explained. "But something unexpected happened. The cellular memory banks that Zraki use to pass down instinctual knowledge merged with the human genetic predisposition for adaptive learning, creating something entirely new." Ryan, the smallest cub, moved to stand with his siblings, forming a small united front. Before the imposing Zraki dignitaries, he reached out his hand in the human gesture of greeting, which Zevix studied with curiosity. Before extending one clawed finger to touch his palm, a current seemed to pass between them, Zivik's eyes widening as if receiving some unspoken communication. The ancient counselor remained still for several moments before withdrawing her hand. They carry the old memories, she whispered, turning to her companions. Memories from before the great cleansing, memories our ancestors purged from our genetic lines. War Minister Krull hissed in alarm. That is forbidden knowledge. He snapped. Those memories were removed for the good of our species, to make us stronger, more focused on conquest. Commander Vrax, who had remained respectfully silent until now, spoke up, his voice firm. Perhaps it is time to question whether that path has truly made us stronger. Minister, he said, the humans have achieved in centuries what took us millennia. Their adaptability, their creativity, their compassion. These are not weaknesses, as we were taught. Olivia stepped forward, addressing the Zraki dignitaries directly. We propose a cultural exchange, she said. Not just scientific, but comprehensive, representatives from both our worlds, living and working together, learning from each other. Beginning here at this settlement. High Counselor Zivik studied the human woman, her ancient eyes revealing nothing of her thoughts. War Minister Krull looked ready to reject the proposal immediately, but Chief Scientist Toral was already nodding with enthusiasm. The cubs represent an unprecedented opportunity for research, Toral argued. We cannot ignore their potential. Zivix raised a clawed hand, silencing both her companions, then turned to look at the settlement again, where humans and the Zraki soldiers who had chosen to stay were working side by side, building structures, planting crops, establishing a community that belonged to neither world yet incorporated elements of both. For 10,000 cycles we have followed the path of conquest, the High Counselor finally said. It has brought us many worlds, many resources, but little growth. We expand outward but never inward. She looked down at the cubs again. These children challenge everything we have become and perhaps remind us of what we once were. She straightened her full height, impressive even among her kind. I will authorize a preliminary exchange program, she announced. 3 cycles of cooperation, after which the High Council will evaluate the results. War Minister Krull began to protest, but Zivix silenced him. With a gesture, the cubs will remain here. She continued, under the protection of both species. A neutral zone will be established around this settlement. No military vessels from either side will be permitted within the system. Kara felt relief wash over her, but knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge would come in the daily reality of 2 vastly different species learning to coexist. The cubs seemed to understand the significance of the moment, Hope reaching up to take her hand, Max standing straighter, his analytical mind already processing the implications, and little Ryan watching the Zraki dignitaries with undisguised curiosity. As Zivix and her companions prepared to return to their ship to make the official arrangements, Kara felt Olivia's hand on her shoulder. We did it, she whispered, the human woman's eyes bright with emotion. Not yet, Kara replied, but we have begun. That night, as the human settlement celebrated with music and food unfamiliar to Zraki sensibilities, Kara watched as her cubs played with both human children and the few Zraki offspring brought by the soldiers who had remained. They moved effortlessly between both groups, translating games, teaching words, creating their own blended culture without effort or conscious thought. Commander Vrax joined, her imposing figure now a comfort rather than a threat. They are the future, he said. Following her gaze, not just the cubs but all of them together, Kara nodded, seeing hope in the interactions before her. A hope that had been absent from Zraki. Culture for millennia focused as it was on conquest rather than connection. We have much to learn from each other, she replied. The moons rose over the settlement, bathing everything in silver light as 2 species separated by biology, evolution, and culture began the long process of understanding one another, with 3 small cubs leading the way forward into an uncertain but promising future. 6 months passed since the diplomatic meeting, and the settlement now called Unity had grown beyond recognition. What had once been a small collection of prefabricated human structures was now an architectural blend of human practicality and Zraki grandeur, curved organic shapes rising alongside geometric human designs, creating a cityscape unlike any in the galaxy. The cultural exchange program had brought 300 Zraki civilians to live alongside the humans, researchers, artists, craftspeople, and their families, all curious about their new neighbors. Some came with prejudice, but most with cautious hope. The human population had grown too, as word spread about the unique community forming on the frontier planet. Kara watched from the window of the education center as her cubs, now visibly bigger, played in the central courtyard. With children of both species, they had become the heart of unity. Their natural ability to bridge both cultures, making them beloved by all, Hope now speaking in complete sentences in both languages had become something of a diplomat among the children, resolving conflicts with wisdom beyond her years. Max had developed an aptitude for sciences. His hybrid mind, grasping complex concepts from both human and Zeraki knowledge systems, while Ryan, the smallest, had revealed an unexpected artistic talent, creating images that spoke to both species on an emotional level. Olivia entered the room carrying data tablets. Her role as settlement leader now expanded to include diplomatic responsibilities. She looked tired but satisfied. The early data from the exchange program is promising, she said, especially in medical science and agriculture. The Zeraki techniques for cellular regeneration, combined with human innovation in genetic modification, have created crops that can grow in almost any soil. Kara nodded, taking one of the tablets, her clawed fingers now adorned with human-style jewelry. A small cultural adaptation. She had embraced some of the Zeraki. Scientists still resist sharing military technology, she noted, scrolling through the reports. Olivia shrugged, sitting beside her old habits. Die hard, she replied. But progress is progress. We have 3 years to prove this can work. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Vrax, now officially the Zeraki ambassador to Unity. His imposing figure somehow softened by his adoption of partial human clothing, a formal jacket worn over his traditional Zeraki lower garments, an embodiment of the cultural blending taking place. We have visitors, he announced, his tone careful, neutral, in the way that immediately put both women on alert. A Zeraki military vessel entered the system an hour ago. They claimed to be on a routine patrol, but they should not be here at all. Kara finished. The neutral zone agreement explicitly forbids military vessels. Vrax nodded, his head crest flattening slightly in concern. I have sent a communication to High Counselor Zevix, but they will not arrive for several days given the distance. Olivia was already activating the settlement security protocols, not aggressive measures but preparation. Who commands the vessel? She asked. War Minister Krull's nephew, Commander Draz Vrax, replied, and he has requested to see the cubs specifically. Kara's protective instincts flared immediately, her scales darkening slightly with emotion. Absolutely not, she stated. They are not specimens to be examined by those who consider them abominations. Olivia placed a calming hand on Kara's arm. We need to be diplomatic, she cautioned. But I agree, the cub's safety comes first. Perhaps we can arrange a meeting, but on our terms, in the community hall with representatives from both species. Present. Kara looked out the window again, watching as Hope mediated a game between human and Zeraki children, creating new rules that incorporated the physical advantages and limitations of both species. Max was nearby, sketching something in a notebook, while Ryan shaped clay with his small, clawed hands. They seemed so vulnerable, yet they carried so much potential. Very well, she agreed, but I want security present, and the cubs will not be alone with them at any time. When the Zeraki military delegation landed, their shuttle sleek and weaponized, a stark contrast to the diplomatic vessel that had brought Zevix months earlier. The residents of Unity watched with mixed emotions, the humans with apprehension, the Zeraki civilians with embarrassment at the aggressive posturing of their military. Cast Commander Draz emerged, flanked by armed guards, his bearing rigid, his head crest fully extended in a display of dominance that made the Zeraki civilians lower their eyes. Instinctively, he surveyed the settlement, his disdain evident in the flicking of his tail. The community hall, decorated with artwork from both cultures, had been prepared for the meeting. A neutral space with seating accommodating both human and Zeraki physiologies. Kara sat with the cubs beside her, Olivia and Vrax flanking them protectively, while Security Chief Maya, a former human military officer, stood nearby. Her stance casual but her eyes alert, Commander Draz entered without ceremony, his guards posting themselves at the doors, his gaze immediately fixing on the cubs, studying them with an intensity that made Kara shift slightly, putting herself more directly between them and his line of sight. I expected monsters. he finally said, his translator converting his words into English. But they look almost normal, almost Zraki. They are both, and neither, Kara replied. They are something new. Draz approached, slowly circling the table. His movements predatory, calculating. War Minister Krull believes they represent a threat to our genetic purity. He stated they contain memories our ancestors deliberately purged, memories that could destabilize our society. Hope looked up at the commander without fear, her copper curls framing her face, which showed both human expressiveness and Zraki strength. Why are you afraid of memories? She asked, her young voice clear and perfect. Zraki, without using the translator. Draz stopped, his head crest flattening momentarily in surprise at being addressed directly by a child, especially a hybrid child. He did not answer immediately. Instead, turning to Vrax, this one speaks well, he commented as if Hope were not present. She speaks 5 languages now. Vrax replied with evident pride. All 3 cubs do they learn. At an accelerated rate. Max, who had been quiet, spoke up, his analytical mind already processing the commander's body language and speech patterns. You didn't answer her question. He pointed out, why are you afraid of our memories? Commander Draz hissed softly, a sound that made the Zraki civilians in the room tense. Your ancestors chose to remove certain traits from our genetic line, traits that made us weak. Compassion, uncertainty, reflection, connection to others. All were deemed unnecessary for a warrior species. And yet here you are, Ryan. The smallest cub said suddenly, in a settlement built on those very traits. Draz's tail lashed, a sign of agitation. I am here to assess the threat. He snapped his translator, making the words sound even harsher in English. The War Minister believes this experiment has gone far enough. Olivia leaned forward, her diplomatic training evident in her controlled response. This is not an experiment, Ambassador, she corrected gently. This is a community, and a successful one. The data shows productivity, increases health improvements, and technological innovations that benefit both species. Commander Draz dismissed her words with a gesture, turning back to the cubs. Your existence challenges 10,000 cycles of Zraki evolution. He said, our species chose a path of strength through purity. Hope shook her head. No, she corrected, your leaders chose that path for your people. Did every Zraki agree? Was every voice heard? The commander seemed taken aback by her insight, an uncomfortable truth. Few Zraki ever spoke aloud that the Great Cleansing had been a decision made by the ruling caste, not a choice of the people. These cubs are dangerous, he finally said, confirming Kara's worst fears, his tail lashing again. They know too much, understand too much. Security Chief Maya stepped forward slightly, her hand not on her weapon but close enough. This is a peaceful settlement, Commander, she reminded him, and these children are under the protection of both human and Zraki diplomatic treaties. Draz looked around the room, noting the mix of humans and Zraki, all watching him with varying degrees of concern and determination. How many of my people have you corrupted with these ideas of cooperation and compassion? He asked, his voice lowering. One of the Zraki civilians, a scientist named Mira, stood. We are not corrupted, she stated, we are awakened. Many of us have found fulfillment here that we never experienced in the rigid caste system of the homeworld. Others murmured agreement, both humans and Zraki voices blending together in support. Commander, Draz straightened his posture, becoming even more rigid. War Minister Krull will hear of this, he said, his tone ominous. I expect he will, Kara replied. And so will High Counselor Zevix and the rest of the High Council. They will hear of a thriving community, of how 2 species can be stronger together than separate, of how children can lead us toward wisdom. We had forgotten. Draz turned without another word, his guards falling in behind him as he left the community hall. His mission clearly not accomplished, but his threat lingering in the air. When they had gone, Kara gathered the cubs close, checking each of them as if expecting to find harm. The children seemed unaffected by the tense encounter, their hybrid nature perhaps giving them resilience their fully human or fully Zraki counterparts might lack. He will return, Vrax said quietly. He did not get what he came for. Olivia nodded, already activating her communication device to send updates to Earth leadership. We should prepare. She agreed, but not with weapons, with evidence of our success here. They want to paint us as a threat. We need to show we are the future. 2 weeks after Commander Draz's unwelcome visit, The warning came in the middle of the night, an encrypted message from a sympathetic member of the Zeraki High Council, alerting Unity that War Minister Krull had convinced several military commanders to act against the settlement, claiming it represented an existential threat to Zeraki. Purity Kara was woken by urgent knocking at her dwelling, finding Olivia and Vrax both looking grim. Security Chief Maya standing behind them, her usually calm demeanor replaced with focused alertness. "We have 18 hours before they arrive," Olivia explained as Kara ushered them inside the cubs, still sleeping in their rooms, unaware of the danger approaching. "The message indicates 5 warships," Vrax paced, the small living area, his tail lashing with agitation. "The neutral zone agreement has been officially suspended," he added. "Krull has declared Unity a rogue colony in violation of Zeraki genetic preservation laws." Kara felt her hearts racing, the unfamiliar sensation of fear gripping her, where once she would have faced danger with Zeraki stoicism. Her time among humans and her love for the cubs had changed her, made her vulnerable in ways her warrior culture would consider weakness, but which she now recognized as strength. "What about High Counselor Zevik?" she asked. "Surely she would not authorize this." Vrax shook his head. "Zevix has been temporarily removed from the council on charges of species betrayal." He explained, his voice tight with controlled anger. "This is effectively a military coup using Unity as the justification." Maya stepped forward, her military training evident in her precise movements. "We have 3 options." She stated: evacuation, defense, or diplomatic intervention. Evacuation would mean abandoning everything we've built here. Olivia said, her frustration clear, and there's no guarantee they'd let the transport ships leave. The system defense is impossible. Vrax added, his military assessment blunt: "We have no weapons that could stand against 5 Zeraki warships." Kara moved to the window, looking out at the settlement bathed in moonlight. The buildings where humans and Zeraki now lived worked and learned together, the fields where they grew crops using combined agricultural techniques, the schools where children of both species played side by side, all of it built in less than a year. All of it now threatened. "There is another option," she said, turning back to face them, her mind racing with a dangerous plan: the cubs. The others looked at her with confusion, but she continued, her voice growing stronger as her idea took shape. "The Zeraki revere ancestral memory above all else. It is the foundation of our society, the reason we keep such detailed genetic records, the reason the memories in the cubs are considered so dangerous." Understanding dawned on Vrax's face. "What are you suggesting?" he asked, a direct appeal to the Zeraki fleet. Kara explained, "But not from us, from the cubs themselves, broadcasting their ancestral memories directly to every Zeraki on those ships, showing them what was lost during the Great Cleansing, the connection to other species, the emotional bonds, the peaceful coexistence that our ancestors once valued." Olivia frowned in concern. "But the cubs, they're so young. To put them in this position." "I don't think we have a choice," Kara replied. "And they are not ordinary children. They understand far more than we sometimes credit them for." In the doorway, a small voice spoke, startling the adults. "We want to help." Hope stood there, her copper curls tousled from sleep, but her eyes alert. Max and Ryan beside her, clearly having overheard the conversation. Kara moved to them, kneeling to their level. "This would be dangerous," she explained honestly. "The Zeraki coming here want to harm you. They fear what you represent. We know." Max replied, his analytical mind already processing the situation. "The ancestral memories show us this has happened before the fear of difference, the retreat into aggression." Ryan, the smallest and usually quietest, nodded. "We can show them another way," he said with simple certainty. Maya looked skeptical. "How exactly would this work?" she asked the practical security officer, needing details. Vrax was already thinking through the logistics. "We would need to modify the settlement's communication array to broadcast on Zeraki neural frequencies." He explained the cubs would need to be connected to amplifiers to strengthen their ancestral memory projections. "Can such a thing be built in 18 hours? Olivia asked. "If we use both human and Zeraki technology." "Yes," Vrax replied, looking to Kara for confirmation. Kara nodded, feeling both pride and fear for the cubs, but seeing no alternative. "We should begin immediately." she said. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. The settlement mobilized with remarkable efficiency. Once informed of the threat, the human engineers working alongside Zeraki technicians to modify the communication array, while medical specialists from both species designed safe connection protocols for the cubs. By midday, Unity had transformed from a peaceful settlement to a community preparing for possible destruction. Yet rather than weapons, they prepared a message of peace, their only defense the memories carried by 3 small children. The cubs themselves showed remarkable composure, Hope helping to translate complex technical terms between the species, Max offering insights into how the neural connections might be optimized, and Ryan creating imagery to help focus the ancestral memories they would project, his artistic talent serving a critical purpose. As the deadline approached, Kara brought the cubs to the newly constructed broadcast center in what had once been the community hall. The 3 children now connected to a web of delicate sensors designed to amplify their unique neural patterns. Olivia monitored their vital signs, while Vrax coordinated with the Zeraki technicians, making final adjustments to the equipment. Security chief Maya entered, her expression grim. The Zeraki fleet has entered the system, she reported. 5 warships on approach. No response to our communications. Kara knelt before the cubs. One last time. Are you certain about this? She asked, searching their eyes for any doubt, any fear. Hope reached out, taking her hand. With these memories, we might prevent more destruction, she said with wisdom beyond her years. Isn't that worth trying? Max nodded, his analytical mind having calculated the probabilities. The statistical likelihood of success is low, he admitted, but the alternative is certain conflict. Ryan simply wrapped his arms around Kara in a human gesture of comfort. We remember who they once were, he whispered. We can remind them. The settlement fell silent as the warships entered orbit, their massive forms visible even from the ground. Dark shadows passing across the twin suns, weapon systems powered and ready, sensors scanning Unity for any sign of defense. In the broadcast center, Olivia activated the final sequence, the modified array powering up with a low hum. Vrax stood beside Kara, his presence a silent support as she watched the cubs close their eyes, concentrating on the ancient memories they carried. The broadcast began not with words, but with sensations, feelings, experiences, memories from before the Great Cleansing, when Zeraki had valued connection, when they had formed bonds with other species, when exploration had been driven by curiosity rather than conquest. Hope projected images of ancient Zeraki nurturing their young, showing affection, resolving conflicts through communication rather than combat. Max focused on memories of scientific discovery, collaboration with other species, the joy of shared knowledge, the strength that came from diverse perspectives, the innovations born from difference rather than similarity. Ryan, the artist, sent images of beauty, cultural exchange, creative expression, emotion, all the things the Zeraki had purged from their genetic memory in pursuit of warrior perfection. Together, the 3 cubs broadcast not just information but experienced the feeling of connection, the sense of belonging, the strength that came from cooperation, all the things the Zeraki had forgotten in their 10,000 cycles of isolation and conquest. On the warship, something unprecedented began to happen. Zeraki warriors trained from birth to follow orders, to suppress emotion, to value strength above all else, found themselves experiencing memories their ancestors had deliberately erased, feeling connections they had been taught were weakness, remembering a time when Zeraki had been different. The weapons targeting systems powered down as confusion spread through the fleet, commanders unable to maintain discipline as their crews experienced the broadcast, some falling to their knees overwhelmed by emotions they had never been permitted to feel, others weeping as they remembered what their species had lost. The lead warship broke formation, moving closer to Unity, not in attack but in what appeared to be curiosity or confusion. In the broadcast center, the cubs maintained their concentration, their small forms somehow seeming larger as they channeled memories spanning millennia across the void to their genetic kin. The communication system crackled to life, the image of a Zeraki commander appearing. His head crest lowered, his posture showing confusion rather than aggression. What is happening to us? he demanded. The memories of who we once were. Kara replied, who we can be again if we choose. The commander struggled visibly, fighting against the emotions the broadcast had awakened. My orders are to destroy this settlement, he said. But I remember things that cannot be real. They are real. Hope spoke, her young voice carrying clearly to the warship. They are your heritage as much as the warrior traditions. The commander looked at the hybrid child with wonder. These feelings he began, unable to articulate the transformation occurring within him. Connections. Vrax supplied the word fellowship, belonging, all the things we sacrificed for conquest, all the things we can reclaim. In the weeks following what became known as the memory broadcast, Unity experienced profound changes. The 5 warships remained in orbit, not as threats, but as protectors, their commanders having requested temporary asylum from the Zraki military hierarchy while they processed the ancestral memories awakened within them and their crews. The settlement expanded rapidly as more Zraki vessels arrived. Not military ships, but civilian transports carrying those who had heard rumors of the broadcast, who felt drawn to Unity by stories of awakened memories and coexistence with humans. What had been designed as a small experimental community was rapidly becoming a true city. Kara watched this transformation from the new education center, a towering structure that blended Zraki organic architecture with human educational philosophies. The cubs, now 7 cycles old, had grown noticeably, their hybrid physiology giving them accelerated development. Along with their enhanced intelligence, they were no longer small children but young people with distinct personalities and gifts. Hope had become a natural diplomat, helping newcomers adjust to life in Unity, smoothing conflicts between human and Zraki cultural practices with an intuitive understanding of both species' needs and fears. Max had developed into a brilliant young scientist, already conducting research into the neural pathways that allowed ancestral memory transmission, studying his own unique brain structure to better understand how the hybrid process had succeeded, while Ryan had established an arts center where both species could express emotions through creative means. Something many Zraki were experiencing for the first time. Olivia joined Kara at the window, her human face showing signs of age that Kara would not experience for centuries, a reminder of the different lifespans their species maintained, despite their growing similarities. We received word from Earth, she said. Diplomatic recognition has been granted. Unity is now officially considered a sovereign territory. Kara nodded, her scaled head reflecting the sunlight. This was significant progress Earth governments had been hesitant to formally acknowledge, Unity fearing repercussions from the Zraki dominion. But the memory broadcast had changed the political landscape throughout the galaxy. And what about the High Council? She asked. Olivia smiled. High Counselor Zevix has been reinstated, she replied. Her supporters outnumbered Krull's faction once news of the broadcast spread. War Minister Krull has been removed from his position pending an investigation into his violation of the Neutral Zone Agreement. This was welcome news, but Kara remained cautious. The Zraki military would not surrender power easily. 10,000 cycles of warrior culture could not be undone by a single broadcast, no matter how powerful. What of Commander Draz? She asked. Still loyal to Krull? Olivia admitted, but increasingly isolated as more military commanders experience the ancestral memories through the recordings we've distributed. The memory broadcast had been recorded and shared throughout Zraki space, creating ripples of change, as warriors, scientists, and civilians alike confronted the forgotten aspects of their heritage, the emotions, connections, and cooperative instincts that had been deliberately purged during the Great Cleansing. Maya entered the room, her security uniform now bearing both human and Zraki insignia, a representation of her dual role protecting all Unity residents. The cubs are asking for you, she said, her usually serious expression softening when speaking of the children. They've made something. They want to show you. Kara and Olivia followed Maya through the education center to a large circular room where the cubs waited with several of their friends, both human and Zraki children, all gathered around what appeared to be a 3-dimensional model of Unity, but not as it currently existed. It's our vision, Hope explained, her copper curls now longer framing a face that showed both human expressiveness and Zraki strength. Unity in 10 cycles. The model showed expanded agricultural areas, research facilities, residential zones that accommodated both species comfortably, and at its center a striking structure unlike anything in the current settlement. "What's this?" Kara asked, pointing to the central building. Max stepped forward, his analytical mind having calculated every aspect of the design. "It's a genetic library." He explained, "a place to store and study both human and Zraki DNA, along with the hybrid patterns we carry to better understand how our species can evolve together. And it's also a cultural center." Ryan added, his artistic vision evident in the beautiful blending of architectural styles, a place to share art, music, and stories from both worlds. Kara felt emotions swell within her. The pride and hope these young people represented, their vision extending far beyond mere coexistence to true integration. "This is remarkable," she said, her voice thick with feeling. The children beamed with pride, but their celebration was interrupted by the arrival of Ambassador Vrax, his expression grave. "There has been a development," he announced. "High Counselor Zevix requests an immediate meeting." The council chamber had once been a simple prefabricated structure. Now it stood as an impressive blend of human and Zraki design elements, the circular table accommodating the physiological needs of both species while the lighting adjusted automatically to the different visual requirements. Zevix's image appeared on the large communication screen, her ancient scaled face showing signs of stress that concerned Kara immediately. The High Counselor rarely revealed. Emotion War Minister Krull's faction has seized control of 3 outer colony worlds. Zevix announced without preamble, they are calling for a return to traditional Zraki values and the destruction of what they term genetic abominations. The Unity. Council members exchanged troubled glances. The threat clear. Krull was building a resistance against the changes spreading through Zraki society. He has also called for the arrest of any Zraki who share the recordings of the memory broadcast. Zevix continued, labeling it corrupting propaganda. "How many support him?" Vrax asked, his military experience immediately assessing the threat. Zevix flicked her tail in the Zraki gesture of uncertainty. "Perhaps 30% of the military caste," she estimated. "But his support grows among those who fear change, who believe our traditional ways are under threat." "And what do you need from us?" Olivia asked. "Always the practical leader." Zevix hesitated, a rare show of uncertainty from the ancient counselor. "The Cubs," she finally said. "Krull's faction fears them above all else. Their ability to awaken ancestral memories threatens everything the traditionalists have built their power upon. We need the Cubs to address the full High Council, to share their memories directly with our leadership." Kara felt protective instincts flare immediately. "No," she said firmly. "They are not political tools. They are children." Hope stepped forward from where she had been listening quietly with her brothers. "We want to help," she stated, her young voice steady. "We have discussed this among ourselves." Kara turned to the Cubs, surprised. Max nodded. "The statistical analysis suggests that direct exposure to ancestral memories produces a 78% conversion rate among traditional Zraki. He explained, much higher than secondary exposure through recordings." Ryan, the artistic soul of the 3, added, "Our memories are part of who we are. Sharing them is not a burden. It's our heritage. Our gift." Kara looked at these remarkable young people, seeing in them courage and wisdom beyond their years, but also vulnerability. They were still children, despite their accelerated development and enhanced abilities. The journey would be dangerous, Vrax warned. Krull's supporters would certainly attempt to prevent such a meeting. "We would provide full protection." Zevix assured them the loyal military forces remain stronger than Krull's faction. "But we must act quickly, before his support grows." Olivia touched Kara's arm gently. "This has to be their choice," she reminded her, "and yours as their mother." The word still filled Kara with wonder, a concept foreign to traditional Zraki culture, where offspring were raised communally, without emotional attachment. Yet she had embraced this human concept, finding in it strength rather than weakness. She looked at the Cubs, seeing in them the future not just of unity, but of both species, a bridge between worlds that could prevent conflict and foster understanding. "I will accompany them," she decided. "But only if every possible security measure is taken." Zevix nodded, her head crest extending in formal gratitude. "The High Council will convene in 3 days," she stated. "A transport will be sent immediately." After the meeting concluded, Kara gathered the cubs in their home, the dwelling that had seen them grow from infants to the remarkable young people they now were. She needed them to understand the gravity of what lay ahead. "What you're volunteering for is dangerous," she explained. "You will face those who fear you, who hate what you represent, who would harm you if given the opportunity." Hope nodded, her expression serious. "We know, Mother," she replied. "The ancestral memories show us how fear of difference can lead to violence, but they also show us how understanding can overcome that fear." Max added his analytical perspective. "Logically, the risk to us individually must be weighed against the potential benefit to millions. The math is clear." Ryan, the gentlest of the three, simply took Kara's hand. "They need to remember who they were before they can choose who to become," he said with the simple wisdom that often characterized his artistic soul. Kara embraced them, marveling at how they had become teachers. To her, despite her centuries of life experience, the cubs had shown her paths of understanding she might never have found alone. The Zraki homeworld loomed in the viewport, its atmosphere swirling with amber clouds. Ancient cities sprawling across the surface like geometric scars on the landscape. Kara had not seen her birth planet in many cycles. Her emotions complicated as she gazed upon the world that had shaped her species, a world of rigid hierarchies, militaristic values, and technological marvels, built through conquest rather than cooperation. Beside her, the cubs pressed against the viewport, their eyes wide. With wonder, though, they carried Zraki ancestral memories. This was their first time seeing the homeworld in person. Hope studying the architectural patterns visible even from orbit. Max analyzing the atmospheric composition displayed on nearby screens, and Ryan sketching, rapidly capturing his impressions of his maternal heritage. The transport descended through layers of security checkpoints, escorted by vessels loyal to High Counselor Zevix, their passage arranged through diplomatic channels. But tensions remained high, the pilot frequently receiving updated security protocols as they approached the central spire home of the High Council. "It looks different than in the memories," Hope observed as ancient monuments and towering structures came into view. "The memories show more color, more organic shapes. The Great Cleansing changed our architecture as it changed our genetics," Kara explained. "After the purge, functionality replaced aesthetics, efficiency replaced beauty." "It feels sad," Ryan said softly, his artistic sensitivity detecting the emotional undertones of the stark landscape below. Their transport landed on a heavily guarded platform, extending from the central spire armed guards, creating a protective corridor from the ship to the entrance, their scales bearing the insignia of Zevic's personal guard elite warriors, who had publicly supported the cultural exchange with humans. High Counselor Zevix herself waited at the entrance, her ancient form supported by a hovering mobility device, a concession to age that traditional Zraki would have considered weakness, but which she now displayed without shame. A small but significant cultural shift. Scientist Kara and the memory bearers Zevix greeted them, formally using the title that had spread throughout Zraki space to describe the cubs. "Your journey comes at a crucial time. The council is deeply divided." Kara bowed respectfully while the cubs followed her example, though Hope added a human handshake to the greeting, a small demonstration of their hybrid nature. "We understand the risks, High Counselor," she replied, "but we believe this necessary." They were escorted through massive corridors carved from stone that predated space travel, ancient symbols etching the walls telling the history of Zraki evolution and conquest, other species represented only as subjugated enemies or resources to be harvested, a narrow view of galactic history that the cubs noted with quiet observation. The High Council chamber revealed itself as they passed through towering doors, a vast circular space with tiered seating surrounding a central speaking platform. Natural light filtering through crystalline structures above 25 council members representing various Zraki factions, regions, and castes watched their entrance with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. War Minister Krull was notably absent, having been removed from his position, but his supporters occupied nearly a third of the seats, their head crests extended in aggressive display, their tails lashing with barely controlled emotion. The remaining council members appeared neutral or cautiously supportive, their postures less aggressive but still wary. Kara felt the cubs draw closer to her as they approached the central platform, sensing the tension in the chamber, the weight of 10,000 cycles of tradition pressing down upon them. yet they moved with remarkable composure. Hope standing tall, her copper curls contrasting with her subtle Zeraki scaling. Max observing the chamber with analytical interest and Ryan taking in the emotional currents with his artist's sensitivity. High Counselor Zevix addressed the assembly. These are the memory bearers, she announced her. Voice-carrying authority born from centuries of leadership, they come before us not as specimens to be judged, but as bearers of our forgotten heritage. They seek to share ancestral memories that were purged during the Great Cleansing, that we might remember who we once were and consider who we might become. A council member from the military faction rose, his scales darkened with emotion. These abominations represent the corruption of Zeraki genetics. He declared they carry human weakness, human frailty, human sentimentality, qualities our ancestors deliberately removed to make us strong. Hope stepped forward before Kara could intervene. Addressing the counselor directly, strength comes in many forms. She stated, her young voice steady. Did the removal of compassion, connection, and creativity truly make the Zeraki stronger? Or did it simply make us more isolated, more feared, less able to adapt? The counselor hissed in surprise. Unused to being challenged, especially by one so young, these qualities were deemed unnecessary for a warrior species. He insisted Max joined his sister, his analytical mind offering a different perspective. Yet in the 10,000 cycles since the Great Cleansing, he countered, humans have advanced from primitive technology to interstellar travel, have established diplomatic relations with 12 species, and have created art, philosophy, and science that spans galaxies. While Zeraki expansion has slowed our technological innovation, plateaued our culture, becoming increasingly rigid, less adaptive. The council chamber filled with murmurs, some outraged, others thoughtful, as the cubs spoke with wisdom beyond their years, challenging assumptions that had remained unquestioned for millennia. Another counselor rose, this one from the scientific cast. If what you claim is true about these ancestral memories, how can we verify their authenticity? How can we know they are not human fabrications? Ryan, the artistic soul, stepped forward, removing from his pack the small sculpture. He had created on Unity a representation of both human and Zeraki forms, intertwined, supporting each other. We do not ask you to take our word, he said softly. We ask only that you experience the memories yourself and make your own judgment. Zevix signaled to technicians who brought forward modified versions of the broadcast equipment used during the memory broadcast on Unity. This technology will allow the cubs to share ancestral memories directly with the council. She explained, each member may choose whether to participate. The military faction immediately objected, claiming the process could be mind control or manipulation. But Zevix herself stepped forward. I have experienced these memories, she stated, and found them consistent with ancient texts preserved from before the Great Cleansing. I will participate again to demonstrate there is no harm. One by one, council members approached the platform, some hesitant, others curious, as the cubs were connected to the equipment, their unique neural patterns amplified to project the ancestral memories they carried, not imposing them, but offering them like an open book to be read. The first memories focused on ancient Zeraki family structures, showing nurturing behaviors, communal, child-raising practices, and emotional bonds between individuals and groups. Memories that contradicted the clinical reproductive methods currently used by modern Zeraki. Next came memories of scientific discovery, collaboration with other species, the joy of shared knowledge, innovation born from diverse perspectives, showing how the ancient Zeraki had valued connection and communication as paths to advancement rather than isolation and conquest. Finally, Ryan shared artistic memories, cultural exchanges, creative expressions, emotional resonance, all the qualities the Zeraki had purged from their genetic memory in pursuit of warrior perfection, but which had once been central to their civilization. The council chamber remained silent as each member processed what they had experienced, some visibly shaken, others contemplative, a few openly weeping as they confronted aspects of their heritage deliberately hidden from them by their ancestors. When the memory sharing concluded, a military counselor rose, his posture different, his head crest no longer extended aggressively. I have served the Dominion for 300 cycles, he said, his voice uncharacteristically emotional. I have led conquests, subjugated species, and forced our will across 12 star systems, but never have I felt what I felt in these memories. Never have I known that we were capable of such connection. Others spoke similar revelations washing through the council as the ancestral memories awakened questions, dormant for millennia, questions about purpose, identity, and the path the Zraki had chosen. One counselor after another expressing wonder at what they had forgotten, what had been taken from them by the architects of the Great Cleansing. Not all were. Convinced, several military faction members refused the memory, sharing their ideology. Too deeply ingrained to risk challenging it. One rose to speak. The cubs must be contained. She insisted they represent a threat to Zraki genetic purity. Their very existence questions the wisdom of our ancestors. Hope addressed this concern directly. Our existence does not threaten Zraki genetics. She explained it expands possibilities, it offers choices. The Great Cleansing removed choice from your people, imposed a single path, a warrior path. But there are many paths to strength, many ways to evolve. Max added with his characteristic precision, the statistical analysis of genetic diversity shows that Zraki DNA has become increasingly homogeneous over the past 10,000 cycles, reducing adaptability and innovation. The introduction of new genetic patterns, whether through hybrid processes or simply through